is up, everybody? Gannon here, back at it again with another one of my Star Trek reviews. We reviewed both the premiere of Strange New Worlds and the season finale of Picard last week, and while New Trek usually struggles with season finales, I'm happy to say that I am more than content with what we got with Picard's final episode and with what we got with the season as a whole. Strange New Worlds had a unanimously strong start, as it's been extremely well received by the community, perhaps the first live-action Star Trek premiere ever that hasn't been totally ridiculed and destroyed by over-passionate Trekkies. Definitely a possibility. All in all, I'm loving Star Trek right now. The first episode of Strange New Worlds, in my opinion, was very good, but it lacked one important key element that kept it from being an absolute banger. Throughout all of Trek, we've had adversity through meetings with volatile and aggressive alien races that, even though some of them were just straight up villains, you still ended up liking them and feeling invested in them as characters by the end of the episode. Whereas in my opinion, they really dropped the ball with the Kiley in this season premiere. The Kiley were just not likable. They were very big, preachy, and just not personable whatsoever. That is all thrown out of the window, however, because Strange New Worlds totally delivers with some awesome new Trek alien races in this latest episode. Let's get right into it with Season 1, Episode 2 of Strange New Worlds. This one is titled Children of the Comet. The episode is called Children of the Comet because the Enterprise is in the Persephone system, more so specifically kind of around this planet called Persephone 3, which is home to a very awesome and cool alien race that are referred to as the Daleb. The Daleb look really awesome. I'm just gonna say they show up a few times in this episode, a little bit at the start and a little bit at the end, and I love every appearance they make. They are a very cool looking alien species. The Enterprise notices that there is actually this comet that is hurtling towards Persephone 3 and is threatening to destroy all of the Daleb. So initially, when they try to use conventional means like photon torpedoes that are jerry-rigged in a special way, turn the comet off course, the comet reacts. There's actually technology inside of the comet that is equipped with shields that are able to protect itself from the Enterprise and its firepower. As the Enterprise tries to tamper with the comet, also tries to send an away team on to the comet in the form of Uhura, Spock, and the newly introduced Samuel Kirk, this race of religious zealots come along, and these people are referred to as the shepherds. And there is a lot of amazing dialogue and interaction between the shepherds over communications this episode, between Pike and then just the captain of the shepherds. The shepherds believe that this comet that they're following and protecting, they refer to it as the Mahanit. They think that the comet is some deity that is preordained to be on this path. It is destiny. The comet wills where it wants to go. If anybody tries to mess with the comet, we will definitely you up. These shepherds have a huge ship. It actually kind of dwarfs the Enterprise, packing insane firepower. Lieutenant Ortegas makes multiple comments about how these shepherds are packing heat, and that if the Enterprise actually tries to contest them, that they're just going to get blasted out of the sky. So we're put in the tense situation this episode of Pike trying to get the away team back to the ship safely. They're trying to figure a way to move the direction of the comet without totally pissing off the shepherds to the point where they're going to annihilate the Enterprise, and they're trying to save Daleb down below. So all in all, this is a really exciting, good episode with a decent plot line. Really focuses primarily on Cadet Uhura, the protege Cadet Uhura, who is the linguistics officer. This is her first away mission when she goes down to this comet. We start off this episode in the captain's quarters, and the captain's quarters look so cool. Every part of the Enterprise, as we're introduced to it, just keeps on looking cooler and cooler. Mishmash of new aesthetics, new modern 2022 aesthetics, but they're also clearly combining the vintage aesthetics of the original Enterprise. And every time we just enter a new room, whether it be the captain's quarters or just the warp core and engineering, every part of the Enterprise just looks so amazing in the series. They're all invited to share a meal with Captain Pike. Lieutenant Ortegas pranks Uhura. it's kind of a tradition to tell the new cadet or just the newbie on board to wear their dress uniform to go and have dinner with the captain when they're totally supposed to dress casually. And then Uhura shows up in this extravagant, beautiful dress uniform, by the way. Absolutely love the design of this dress uniform, and then just gets embarrassed because she's totally overdressed for the function. The crew is just laughing, they're getting along, they're having a really good time. We're introduced to Chief Engineer Hemmer in this episode. Hemmer is played by Bruce Horak, who is actually a blind man. I'm pretty sure I read an article he can only see like 9% of his total vision. So he's a visually impaired actor who's playing a visually impaired character. However, Hemmer would not be comfortable with me calling him a visually impaired character because to him, he's not disabled. He's an aenar, so he's quite pompous, he's quite confident, and he has supernatural abilities, and he does not feel impaired because of his sight. And it's just really awesome to see. It seems like he was kind of testing Uhura's character and pressing her a little bit, being a little bit oversensitive to all of her comments and seeing how she deals with them. And Uhura then claps back and definitely deals with them in the best way possible. And then Hemmer proceeds to make a comment about how he really likes Uhura. And I have to agree, Hemmer, I both like you and I love the new Uhura. Such a great actress. She is just bubbling with energy and really filling the shoes and playing this role well. They go down to this Comet, and the Comet is the one part of this episode that I kind of have to criticize. Near the end, okay, it's learned that the Comet knowledgeable about future events to the point where it kind of is preordained to go where it is going to go. I don't really know how to put this, but basically at the end of the episode, the way that they move the Comet without directly touching it or without directly with it in a way that's going to totally piss off the shepherds is they have Spock fly over to it, makes his shuttle really hot, and he melts the Comet, therefore shaving off a little bit of it and moving it out of the way of Persephone 3. Then it is learned from Uhura after she collects a little bit of information that the Comet was sending them a message showing them a preview of this bit of chunk of ice rock that leaves the Comet after Spock completes his mission. So it's learned that the Comet actually had preconceived knowledge of Spock's meddling with the Comet, so this Comet actually knows what's going to happen. In a way, these religious zealots, the shepherds, were right all along in having faith in the Comet. Because they protected this Comet so adamantly, in a way, they put this chain of events into motion. All of this was meant to happen, and they were supposed to shave off that little bit of ice in front of Persephone 3 because all of that water ended up kind of vaporizing, dispersed all over the planet, making it way less arid and dry, allowing them to grow a lot more plants, having rain fall down from the sky. So all in all, everything worked out how it was supposed to be. My only criticism of the episode, I would say, is Uhura goes in on the inside and Samuel Kirk goes to investigate this xenomorph egg that's in the middle of this Comet. They're trying to read what's on this egg, and then Samuel Kirk gets blasted with space energy. He is going to die. They stabilize him because, of course, we know that Samuel Kirk is not fated to die until the TOS episode Operation Annihilate. So that dude's definitely got to stay alive. Uhura, being the prodigy that she is, all eyes on her this episode. This is her episode to grow, to shine, to be introduced as a character. She finds out that this cave is actually sensitive to sound and is actually sensitive to certain musical notes. Then she deciphers that the writing on the egg that blasted Samuel Kirk actually is saying some musical notes, and she sings them in the correct tune to lower the shields down on the egg. At the end of the episode, the only explanation we get for why this egg is the way it is or why it behaves this way is basically that it just can see into the future and it's a fortune-telling comet egg. But there's no explanation for why this comet actually is reactive to sound in musical notes other than that it's a universal language. And then on top of that, I was very surprised to see that they actually decided to melt the comet. I would have thought that they might have actually shot some musical notes over to the comet telling it to move itself, but maybe the comet just didn't have the capabilities to move itself, and that was the whole point. Spock had to actually intervene and these events had to unfold. So maybe it's not really deserving of criticism and maybe it just doesn't sit right with me. But all in all, I would have liked the Comet to be a little bit better explained and not just a whole bunch of a random chain of events linked together, like Samuel Kirk getting blasted from a space egg, then they're communicating with it through musical notes, and then at the end of the episode, they're melting it into a fortune-telling egg. That is actually a lot to take in, I'm gonna be honest. The best part about that scene when the senior staff are at the captain's table is with Spock. He makes this comment about how he's confused by how humans laugh at other people's misfortune, and it's just like a classic Spock scene with some classic Spock dialogue, and I love it. Ethan Peck does an impeccable job this episode playing Spock. I swear that's not going to be the last time that I use that pun. He does a great job playing Spock in this episode. I honestly feel like the whole cast just does a way better job at playing their characters this episode, almost like they've gotten a little bit of the first episode jitters out and they're just melting into these roles way better, and I'm just liking them more than their initial appearance, if that makes any sense. Every interaction between Captain Pike and the Shepherds was great. I love the Shepherds. This episode, like I said before, did a great job on finally giving us some memorable and good Star Trek races, and not to mention the Shepherds actually had some tie-in. They actually had like a message, though it was a little bit literal at the end. They had to come out and say it. It's almost like, hey, you shouldn't judge us to be just total religious, zealotous assholes. You shouldn't be so judgmental against other people's faith just because you don't understand it, because hey, because we practice our faith and because we followed this comet and because we were meddlesome, everything actually ended up working out in the end, and the Dela people of Persephone 3 ended up thriving, and everybody ended up getting what they wanted. I also love this episode because I know that this is like predating Kirk's era, but there's just this scene where Captain Pike says that the Federation just doesn't let a species die, and I know that the aliens from the Next Generation episode, Homeward episode, would just love to hear that, because Captain Picard is over here just totally contemplating letting an entire civilization of people just die because they're not advanced enough and they don't have warp technology, so they don't deserve to live. Also, Pike does pull a little bit of a Corbinite maneuver in this episode. He tells the Shepherds that if they destroy the Enterprise on top of the Comet, that he kind of exaggerates, and he says that there's going to be a way bigger reaction than there actually is. I do not think that the destruction of the Enterprise would like totally 100% destroy that Comet. I do believe that Pike was kind of gassing it up a little bit. And something that I will have to say about this episode is that the space choreography is insane. It's really good seeing Ortega's like whip the ship around. There was this little maneuver that she did, Ortega's Omega something. There was a maneuver that they did before that Captain Pike told her to do called the April Omega 3, and I interpreted that as like being a maneuver that Robert April probably invented, and it probably is, considering that this Enterprise doing a loop-de-loop barrel roll was referred to as the Ortega's something something. So it really does seem like they put the name of the person into the maneuver. The space debris, though, is a little bit dramatic. There is just way too much space debris on the screen at any one time. It is a little bit too Discovery-esque when the screen is just completely covered with asteroids and the Enterprise is always just hitting them and it's reflecting off of the shields, and it's really cool to see that effect, but it is spammed way too much in New Trek. And because of the whole predetermined fate thing going on with the Comet, of course they're going to make a couple mentions about Captain Pike's fate that is going to be coming in about 10 years. He's totally going to have that accident and be reduced to the robot chair. Number one has a conversation with Captain Pike telling him, hey, do you really have to accept this fate? You experienced this so that you could purposely avoid it, so that you could have your cake and eat it too. Maybe you could save all of those cadets and maybe you don't have to die. This episode hilariously ends with Pike looking at all the people he's going to save up on like a computer screen, and it's so funny. It is the most diverse and inclusive Disney reality show cast I've ever seen. Like, they literally have a child for every single race that exists on planet Earth with no repeats. White, Hispanic, Asian, black. They just fit every single color without fail, and I just thought that that was really funny because it is so intentional. But anyways, I'm sorry if this review was not as fluid as they usually are. I'm kind of having trouble focusing today because of how tired I am. I will have to say that I loved this episode of Strange New Worlds. I think it is a huge improvement from the very first episode. All of the actors seem to be melding into their roles better, and I'm liking all of their performances more. I loved pretty much everything that happened in this episode, and not to mention they finally gave me what I want in the form of likable Trek aliens. This episode is giving a 7.5 out of 10. I honestly feel like people were wanting the first episode of Strange New Worlds to be better than it actually was. The feedback that I was getting, I was reading it and I'm thinking like, this truly isn't classic Trek just quite yet. We still have like a couple extra steps to go. This episode really did feel like a classic Trek episode to me. The only thing that could have been like written better, I think, is just the comet and the weird musical space egg that was in the middle. That was my review of Strange New Worlds episode 2. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have anything that you'd like to talk about or share with me, please leave it down in the comments below. I read all comments. They're my favorite thing about YouTube. If you're enjoying any of the content that you see on the channel, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe. When I get to 10K subscribers, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to dress up as a Star Trek Xenos and go and harass people out in public. If you'd like to have discourse about anything that we discuss here on the channel, please join my Discord. The link is in the bottom of every video. And with all that being said, hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Live long and prosper.
Can I subscribe?